is the AP Top 25 poll. I'm saying we got to look at all 25 teams. I really don't need to get that serious about it, but I'd like to talk about it for a couple minutes. I'm looking at it now, and I think the biggest thing you saw is Oregon jumping LSU, swapping spots 2 and 3. So now Oregon's 2 and LSU is 3. And I'm curious to know, because I mean, Eric is much more college football versed than I am. Let's be honest. And really, Eric, I'm curious to know if you think that was the right thing to do by the people that do the rankings, I guess you would say. You know, to you, does it make sense that Oregon jumped LSU?
Yes.
Yes? Now,
yes, and the reason why is they beat a ranked Arizona team 49-0, where LSU kind of struggled in a 12-10 win over Auburn, who is unranked this year. And struggling themselves.
They did struggle. That was not a pretty game, to say the least. Even after they took the lead, it's not like the confidence, jumped up where they started dominating the game. They took the lead 12-9 in the third quarter, like midway through. So for another 20 minutes pretty much of football, it stayed 12-9. So
12-10, you mean?
12-10. So credit to their defense, for holding them to 10 and keeping it at 10. But offensively, 12 points, you play in Alabama, 12 points might not be enough. You play some of these teams that have some stronger offense, 12 points isn't going to be enough to win you a game. So, all right, so you like that move. Now I'm looking at it as well, and I'm looking at the fact that Oklahoma dropped all the way out. And I don't even see them ranked by the AP. Oh, no, there they are. Sorry.
They're ranked.
They went from 6 to 16. Now, Oklahoma goes from 6th to 16th due to the fact that they lost to Kansas State, 24-19. And what I'm curious to know is, that really, I'm just going to ask you the same thing. Is from 6 to 16 a fair drop to losing to a ranked Kansas State team?
Yeah, because of where Kansas State was ranked. I think they were ranked 15th.
Kansas State was ranked 15th before the game and jumped all the way up to number 7 now after the win.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that's a fair jump for Kansas State?
I would put them at 7, maybe 15-9.
So you could see them jump into the top 10, but 7 might seem a little high.
Because they seem like they're the best team in the Big 12.
Okay. See, and that's what I mean. I actually like how we're working this right now. This is actually sort of fun for me. So South Carolina jumps from 7 to 6.
There's actually 4 teams from the SEC, 2 from the SEC West, 2 from the SEC East in the top 6. 4 of the top 6 teams are SEC teams.
Wow. Oh, that shows you.
Alabama at 1.
Can't say you're surprised, though. The SEC is just, that's what they are. They're the SEC.
Alabama at 1. LSU at 3, Georgia at 5, and South Carolina at 6, with South Carolina and Georgia both being from the SEC East. And obviously LSU and Alabama being from the SEC West.
See, that's actually... that I can't say I'm very surprised. I really can't. I want to say I'm surprised, but I really can't say I'm surprised. I mean, it's the SEC, and there's a reason it's considered the most dominant conference. I mean, let's be serious. There's a reason for that. They have a ridiculous amount of talent. Ridiculous. Either which way, though, let's keep this moving. Stanford moves up a little more. They go from 9 to 8. I can't really say that means too much. They actually swap spots with West Virginia. So I guess in that situation, I would ask you, after week 4, or through 3 weeks and going into week 4, they felt that West Virginia was better than Stanford, and now they feel Stanford's better than West Virginia. Who do you think's the better team?
Stanford or West Virginia?
Yeah.
Stanford.
You like Stanford better. Okay. So then to you, this past AP poll makes more sense than the last one in that situation. They all obviously only swapped spots. They didn't, make major jumps or anything. Notre Dame only at number 10. Does that seem right to you? Should they be a spot or two higher?
No, that seems about right. They deserve to be a top 10 team with the talent they've beaten so far. and how they've beaten them. Like I said, holding Michigan State to only 3 points. Pretty handily beating Michigan. They really, I see them right about there. I wouldn't put them any higher than, say, a 9 or an 8 right now. They still have a lot of tough games on their schedule, like USC and Stanford. It's going to be a tough road for them, but I think that, they're ranked appropriately for where they are right now.
All right, now we'll keep it moving. Now, last week, Florida was ranked at 14. They made the jump all the way up to number 11. USC stayed at 13. Texas stayed at 12. Out of those 3 teams, do you think any of them ended up getting a better deal than they should have? Like Texas and USC stayed the same. Florida goes from 14 to 11. Now, is that surprising to you? Do you think USC, because USC didn't look that good against Cal. They didn't look amazing against Cal. They did win the game, but they didn't look anything special. Texas has stayed pretty consistent throughout the year. But the Florida jump, to me, going from 14 to 11, I don't really feel like Florida's done anything that amazing or that special. So do they deserve to be all the way at 11? I don't know. I don't know if I see that one.
11 may be a little high.
I think 14 sounds straight for them. I don't think that's being mean. I think it's just seems about right to me. But in 1 week, they go from 14 to 11. I mean, their game wasn't even a game me and you talked about last week because we didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So for that, obviously they won, but I don't know. Jumping to 11 surprises me.
What was the score of that game? Do you know the score?
I can find out for you.
Maybe that's why they jumped, is because they won that big.
Yeah, I have the scores from last week's game in front of me. I just have to, or games in front of me. So one problem with college football, there's a lot of games.
Yeah.
So you're like, sitting here trying to find one team is not very easy, ladies and gentlemen, and I did not do it yet. So either which way, we'll keep chatting it up, and then if I find the Florida score, I will let everybody know. But you obviously know they won. Now, another thing I'm sort of wondering about is Ohio State. I like what Ohio State's done so far this year. I think they've looked pretty good. So, with that said,
the Big Ten is just a down conference right now, though. That's the problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, I could see that. I would like to. I wish I could argue, but I can't. Argue.
Wisconsin's not what they were when even last year when Russell Wilson was there. Michigan State getting lumped up by Notre Dame. You have Michigan, not looking like the Michigan everybody thought they were going to be. They were ranked number 8 at the beginning of the year. They've already gotten beat a few times. They've gotten beat. Michigan's got 3 losses already.
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten beaten by some good teams, though. I mean, you lose to Notre Dame, who's looked really good all year. You lost to Bama, which, they're Bama. So, I mean, I don't really need to elaborate past that. But, it's not like they're losing to Joe Schmo. I finally found the Florida score. They beat Kentucky. Florida was home and beats Kentucky 38-0.
Maybe that's why. It's because they beat them up. Wasn't really close at all whatsoever. Could have been why they jumped. Plus, you got to look at the teams that were ahead of them. Did they lose? Or, when they jumped, who was ahead of them at the time?
I see what you're saying. Well, Florida last week was at 14. They jumped up to 11. USC, Texas, and Notre Dame were the teams ahead of them. Notre Dame jumped up to 10. Texas and USC stayed the same. Ohio State moved into the 14 spot. So the team that dropped out to make room.
Also, Oklahoma, went from 6 to 16.
And Clemson went from 10 to
wherever they went. So there were the 2 spots that Florida jumped to and Notre Dame jumped to, and then everybody else kind of slid up one as well.
Yeah, Clemson went from 10 to 17, which all in all, considering, they played Florida State, so I'm definitely glad they didn't knock Clemson out of the rankings, because you lose to Florida State, a team that going into the game was giving up 1 point a game. That's what they were giving up, 1 point.
Not anymore, though.
No,
They gave
not
up
anymore.
A whole bunch to Clemson.
Oh, I know that, but I'm saying through 3 games they gave up 3 points. Like, that was it. So, I mean, you got to have respect for the team that they lost to. Now, I guess the one other thing that more than anything I'd like to bring up for a couple minutes is the fact that Rutgers is now ranked 23rd.
Well, they're 4-0, or are they 4-0 or 3-0?
4-0, yes.
Yeah. They went to Arkansas and beat an SEC team. Even though Arkansas is really down this year, as evidenced by they've lost to pretty much everybody, Rutgers still went to Arkansas. That's big, believe it or not. That is big. And they've won their games pretty handily. They lumped Arkansas up.
And they got this one kid. I don't know his name off the top of my head. I'm going to try and find out. A wide receiver. Kid's like 6'6", and he runs like a gazelle. Like, he just gets behind coverages, and he's just a beast. And he seems to be such a security blanket for the quarterback in Rutgers that they have one hell of a combination between the two of them. I'm trying to see. Let me see if I can find this kid. Why don't they list this stuff in position order? That's annoying.
While you're looking that up, just touch on something else in the college football world. Penn State, everybody knows what they're going through this year. They did win this weekend at Temple. I'd like to point out I think it's pretty good stat Fife put in the chat room of they're actually, after the first quarter, they're outscoring their opponents 35-0 in the first quarter and 55-9 in the first halves. A game so far.
Oh.
Even though the games end up close and they've lost a couple, especially the first 2 games of the year. They've won the last 2, but the first 2 games, they looked a little shaky, especially in the second half. Seems it could be turning the corner and turning things around. I hope they have a better year, but I still see them around 500. But I just wanted to say congrats to the Penn State boys for winning, beating Temple.
Check out some of these offensive performances by the weapons that this Rutgers team, out of nowhere, in my opinion, has. All right, and we'll wrap it up after this, and then we'll come back and maybe talk about some of the games that actually did happen this past weekend, or we can move on to some crazy football topics that I got written down. Either which way. So at quarterback, they got Gary Nova. Right now, the kid's completing about 60% of his passes. He has 9 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions. He's almost 1,000 yards through 4 games. Not bad. But this is where their skill position's awesome. You got Jawan Jamison. I'm talking Rutgers right now, ladies and gentlemen. Has 102 carries for almost 500 yards, averaging almost 5 yards a carry. Now, he does only have 2 rushing touchdowns, so, I mean, if you want to judge that, you can judge that. There are 2 wide receivers. Tim Wright. Kid is 6'4", 200-plus pounds, has 18 catches, 228 yards. But no touchdowns, which I was like, what? Then I looked down, and I found my 6'6" guy, Brandon Coleman, 6'6". So you got 6'4", 6'6". Brandon Coleman has 12 catches, 207 yards, 5 touchdowns through 4 games.
Pretty good.
Not bad. Those are some weapons to have
Not
on the
bad for Rutgers
outside.
Ball Club that's usually not talked about this time of year.
No, not talked about at all. Now, can they capitalize? Now, the Big East, we all know where people are going with on that, so.
I think even if they ran the table, they'd still have a hard time making the championship.
Yeah, and you got
just because of strength of schedule. I think they would have a hard time, Rutgers, getting into the title game.
And I could see that, and I completely understand that. And I don't look at Rutgers as a team to go compete for a national championship. But when I look at Rutgers, I just want them to be respectable. And when they lost Schiano, I thought that was really going to take a hit to them because I felt like he had a very big impact on what they were doing in New Jersey. But they come out, they're 4-0. They're ranked for the first time all year, ranked at 23rd, which I ain't complaining about. I'm more than cool with that.